Good morning. How you doing? Thanks for showing up. I'm Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. Thank you all for coming. This session is actually being live. It's on YouTube. The folks here, please refrain from sidebar conversations because there's mics in the ceiling and it will pick you up even if you're whispering. Very good mic. So if you don't want to be the next sensation on YouTube, be careful about that. If folks here, if you need to go to the restroom, there's the code right there on the door. Ladies and men, you got to enter that code. We're going to be, there's several presenters here today. And we're going to talk to you about changes with Barber Cause. We're going to have about 75 slides, a lot of information. We're not going to take questions during the presentation. If you have questions, we're going to take them through Poll Everywhere. And there is on the screen, the folks on virtual, you can download it. If you have an Android, I think we recommend option 1 and 2. If you have an Apple, you can text to 22333 TDLR Summit and then click on participants and you'll be there. You can start just sending your questions as you hear the speaker. Maybe you can understand something and you can say, hey, what about this? We want to get those questions. We're saving them. We have a bunch of questions from McAllen, Dallas, and Houston. And I'm hoping we get some additional questions just so that we can better understand your perspective of all these changes. We want to give you the right information. And I want to squash any gossip out there or rumors, if you will. You want to hear it live from everybody here. So I'll tell you, I want to start the meeting off by saying this. Barber Cause, as you heard, is merging. I want you to know that Class A barbers will continue to be Class A barbers and the cosmetologist operator will continue to be cosmetology operator. That has not changed. I don't want people thinking that, oh, since they merge, I'm an operator, I can cut, I can shave. Not true, right? You're still the same industry. Most of the changes and the things you're going to hear today are on the back end. It's on an administrative side. It's changes with TDLR and how we operate. You'll hear things like TDLR Sunset Commission, not TDLR, Texas Sunset Commission. You'll hear things about HB 1560, a bill that made changes to not only Barber Cause, but to a lot of different programs that we regulate. In that bill, it's saying TDLR need to be more efficient. You're operating these two different programs and two different laws and rules, not efficient. So a lot of the changes on the back end, and we're making, rapid changes to our IT programs, to our website, to our applications, a lot of back end change. And some of the questions you may have, we may not have answers right now. As Dee Dee said in Houston, we're at 70% of getting this stuff done. We still have 30% to do. Some of the questions you may have for, the schools, how many school owners are here present? Great, and salon and shop owners, barbers, cosmetologists, barbers, okay. So what you probably get you want to have a lot of questions about how do I do and what do I do here and how sure it's going to work. We don't know. We don't know that yet. We will, and we will tell you how this is going to work. So just, don't get too excited or don't get too worried, right? Just wait to worry. But we're going to share with you what's happening right now and how the rules are going to be implemented and hopefully adopted by December. You'll hear from our counselor over here about the laws and rules. So you guys get the poll everywhere. Text TDLR Summit to 22333. Make sure you send those questions in. Those who are virtually can do the same. If you're having trouble with the Android, make sure you do option 1 and 2 on getting that poll everywhere. Anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce to you guys our Deputy Executive Director for the department. His name is David Gonzalez. And David, floor is yours.
Thank you, Ray. Thank y'all for all being here today. None of this works. Thank you. None of this works unless y'all show up. We can go party. but y'all have to be interested in the information we have to share with y'all. And thanks for those that are watching at home as well. For those of you that are familiar with our agency, we have strategic planning every 2 years. Just like every 2 years, we have a legislative session. This strategic planning session in February, we went around telling everybody what our priorities were. One of our biggest priorities, because it's so important for our agency, is to fully implement the recommendations resulting from the sunset review process and resulting sunset bill, which is House Bill 1560. Let's see if I get the right button here. That one's. How many of y'all, by show of hands, know what the Texas Sunset Commission is? Just before it got on the screen, did you know what it was? Have you familiar with it? All right. It's pretty important for state government because it is an entity that decides on whether or not state agencies stick around. They review our agencies to see if we're doing our job, if we're serving the public well. And it's a really in-depth review. And in fact, the stuff we're talking about here today, the wheels got set in motion probably about 3 years ago when the Sunset staff came to our agency. They took our self-assessment and started saying, well, we want to see how y'all are doing exams. We want to see how y'all are doing licensing. We want to see how your IT functions work at this agency. They get embedded with our agency. They review everything we do, and then they prepare a report that goes to the Sunset Commission. These are legislators, 5 representatives, 5 senators, and 2 public members appointed by the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor. So this is the upper echelon of our government setting aside a commission to decide whether or not this agency will continue. Thankfully, we were continued for 12 more years, which means this agency, they found us doing a good enough job that we're going to be able to continue for the next 12 years. That's a good thing. It's a round of applause for us because we get to stick around for 12 years, but all the programs that we oversee also get to stick with us and get administered the way we're doing things, except for the things they've made recommendations on. Now, these are recommendations from the staff, the Sunset Commission, those legislators. They review those recommendations and they take public comment. They actually want to know whether or not they're on the right track. And once those recommendations get finalized, they get put into a bill. I'll let Dee Dee talk about bills and laws a little bit more, but they're trying to establish it as a law. They put it onto the legislature's shoulders to decide whether or not we get continued, and we did continue. But one of the main points that they brought in to our sunset bill, along with a lot of other programs we oversee and a lot of other responsibilities, the main one for this group is consolidating the barber and cosmetology programs. If you go to the Texas Sunset Commission's website, there's an actual line, a bullet point that says TDLR must consolidate the barber and cosmetology programs. So it wasn't just on a whim, we decided we're going to do this. It was a mandate from the legislature. Let's see if it goes. Am I pointing at the right thing? All right.
Battery died.
Maybe the battery died. That's really all I had to share with you. I think our next speaker is going to be Dean McEachern, and hopefully you can get the mouse coordinate for you. There we go.
I'm turning.
There we go. We're catching up, and I went too far even. All right. So without any further ado, our licensing division director, Ms. Dean McEachern.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thanks for coming, over here to Austin in a nice rainy morning when nobody likes it, but we need the rain and the cold is a great change. So I'm excited about it. Just get a little pep in your coffee today. I want to talk to you this morning about what is the difference between a law and a rule, because you're going to hear the term law a lot today, and you need to be able to understand the difference to know how we got where we are right now. So some of you might be old enough to remember Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday mornings when you were a kid. You don't have to raise your hand. So one of those things was, I'm just a bill. And it's a great education on bills and how they get passed. You can Google it. It's on YouTube. Go watch it. If you haven't seen it because you're not old enough, you can check it out. It'll help explain a lot in very easy terms to understand. So David just talked about what's sunset. So we got reviewed for 2 years by the Texas Sunset Commission by their staff. That they ended up taking that review and all the findings in it and creating House Bill 1560, which was TDLR Sunset Bill. That Sunset Bill was passed and it made most of their recommendations into law which we're now implementing with rules. So one of the things it did was it brings the barber and cosmetology programs, laws together to prevent those overlapping regulations. So what's the difference between a law and a rule? The easiest way to picture this in my head, I'm a visual person. I know a lot of you are too, because that artistry you do requires a lot of visual experience. So the law is a framework to a house. Imagine you're seeing a house being built. It's where the walls are, it's how big the foundation is, how many stories it's gonna have, how many windows it's gonna have. It's the stuff that could be changed down the road, but it takes a lot of effort to do it and a lot of time to get it done. The rules are like the interior design. They are the parts that are easier to change, parts you have more control over if you're a homeowner. You can change the paint color, you can change the flooring, you can change the curtains. All of those things do take a little time to change. They take some effort, but it's much more manageable and you have more control. The legislature in House Bill 1560 took a duplex, tore out that wall, and created a single family house. And so now we're trying to get a blended family that can work together and get everybody happy. So in summary, I want you to take away from the Texas legislature creates laws. The Texas legislature is the only people that can change laws. TDLR writes rules, TDLR changes rules. TDLR changes rules in conjunction with your advisory board and our commission that runs this agency, okay? So who changes laws? Legislature. Who creates laws? Legislature. Can TDLR change laws? No, because I didn't talk about this part. So state agencies are forbidden from having an opinion about a law. We can't say that doesn't make sense. We can't say this is how you do it. We can't petition the legislature to make law changes. That's just not in the realm of things we're allowed to do. State agencies are, it's called lobbying, and state agencies are strictly forbidden from lobbying. So that's something that if you want changes, you have to take to your legislatures, your senators, your representatives, and talk to them about how to get these changes. Two of the things that have probably affected you most was 2 years ago, the 1,500 hours going down to 1,000. That was a law change. It's done. We can't do anything about it as TDLR. That's going to require a call to your senator, your representative to make that happen. The same thing with the instructors. It's a law change. We can't do anything about it. We can't say it really doesn't make sense because we can't have an opinion. Y'all do. It's where your voice is going to come in to affect the changes that you need to make it happen, okay? And so if you have any questions on law versus rule and where we can go from there, put them in poll everywhere and we'll get to them afterwards, okay? Thanks for your attention. I hope I was able to clear up a little bit and we'll just keep going. You'll hear more and more today about what we can do and what we can't do. So here's Rebecca Armas.
Good morning, beautiful people. My name is Rebecca Armas. I'm one of the team leads with the Education Examination Division. Thank you so much for coming this morning. Hello to everyone tuning in online. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to get these updates from us. My portion will be discussing what has TDLR done so far with regards to implementing HB 1560. We'll go over a few things together. One of the things was the deregulation of wigs. That does not mean that you cannot offer wig services in your shops or salons. It just means that we no longer regulate it. You can still fit people for wigs, you can still offer the services, it's just no longer required by the agency, or it's not regulated by the agency, excuse me. Another thing that is, and we understand that, you know, as state employees, we are not allowed to have one way or another as far as whether we agree or disagree, but we are empathetic. We are empathetic to, you know, how our industries feel when, you know, certain changes happen. One of the things that I've been, you know, the common theme that I've said is we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't care. We're coming out here to help you understand this, get you through this process. The instructor license has been deregulated. Moving forward, what does that look like for you? And I'll help you out with some of that information. One of the things is you're no longer required to have an instructor license to teach in the school. But what does that mean for school owners and high school districts and community colleges? You set the standard for who you want to employ. You will be able to set whatever guidelines. TDLR has no authority to set guidelines, so that's going to be for you to set the guidelines on who you want teaching in your schools. And for the high schools, you want to get with your administration to have them, offer them some feedback on what you want as far as standards for folks coming into your schools. And the same for community colleges. You want to offer that type of guidance to those folks because you're the ones behind the chair, teaching people to be behind the chair and be successful. You're the ones in the classroom, you're doing this day to day. So you want to offer your experiences to your administrations to help them set the proper guidelines to make sure the right folks are in their teaching. Because we all have those folks, we all know those folks that are instructors, but you take a look at them and you wonder how they are instructors. I've been told that from folks in the industry, like, man, how did they get a license? It happens. And that's fine. Everybody has their own different method of teaching. It's just, it's what you make of it. The thing is that just because the instructor license was taken away does not mean your identity has gone away. You are still some of the best educators in the nation. You still help make this world beautiful by preparing your students to be successful behind the chair. That doesn't take that away from you. You still have that pride. You are still educators. Please keep that in mind moving forward. It does sting, but it doesn't remove who you are. And there's where I was having the discussion of, setting the standards of what you want. It is your prerogative. TDLR has no authority to tell you who you can and cannot hire. The only thing is you have to hire for what license they hold. So if you're teaching an operator course, the cosmetology operator course, then an operator is going to teach that course. Or if you're going to teach a Class A barber, then you're going to have a Class A barber teach that course. For aesthetics, same thing. Manicuring, same thing. Eyelash extension, everything has to correspond. Now for an operator, you can teach the full gamut because your license allows you to do that. Barbers, you would need to make sure that you have whatever you're able to teach, and you would offer that for just the Class A barbers. Go forward here. Can you still offer a training course for your future educators? You can, you just need to make sure that you set the standard of, this is not for TDLR credit. It can be a certification course. You're going to have a teacher training course where you're going to certify someone to, be an educator in the future, or, folks want to have that little extra training to make sure that they understand how to, classroom management. You can also be a mentor to someone. That does not affect your 25-to-1. So if you've got someone that you've made a contact with and you really believe in how, their future, and you can see the passion in them that they want to teach, you can bring them in, have them as your teaching assistant, and that does not count against your 25-to-1 ratio. So you could be mentoring the student and showing them how you do your classroom management. Another thing I want to share with you, and you're going to hear this common theme throughout the day-to-day, is your identities. Barbers, you're still barbers. Cosmetologists, you're still cosmetologists. What we did on our end is we had 5 separate laws and rules that we had to look over that governed your 2 industries. So what it's done now, it's consolidated them into 1 set of laws and 1 set of rules. And it makes it a lot easier for the department when we have any type of enforcement cases. We want to make sure that we've got 1 set of laws, 1 set of rules, and it's easier for us to use for enforcement. For examination purposes, before you had to have your students go through 5 sets of laws and rules to figure out what was going to be on their exams. Now it's 1 set of laws and 1 set of rules for them to study. All of that goes into effect as far as the examinations go, September 1, 2023. And I believe that is all I have for you this morning. Again, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate it. Make sure you get those questions in on the Poll Everywhere app.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Still a little sleepy? Yeah? Good morning, everyone online. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you here. How many barbers do we have here, or barber students? All right. Congrats to you all. It's good to see some barber representation. And then cosmetologists? All right. Great. This is what we like to see. We like to see a pretty good crowd at our meetings. And seeing y'all's involvement tells me y'all care about your industry. Y'all care about what you do. You care about the changes that are happening. All right, keep it up. Keep up that momentum. My name is Yvonne Lopez. I am the licensing manager, and I am doing this the wrong way. I'm having issues the way David was. There we go.
The other way.
Oh. Okay, so I'll be talking about what's new this year for some of your industries. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is the new human trafficking signage for all businesses. This is for shops and this is for schools. This is not new for cosmetologists. Cosmetology salons and cosmetology schools have always had to post a human trafficking sign since it was put into law. The difference now, though, is that instead of the information being in 3 languages, it's now in 5 languages. That requirement goes into effect January 1st of 2023. This is very new for barbers, for barber schools and barber shops. This is new for you all. You do have to post a human trafficking sign. A copy of the sign has been included in your packet. So if you're ready to start posting that sign now, you're welcome to do so. Up until January 1st. January 1st, you have to post it. Okay. Why am I struggling with this? There we go.
It's moving over here.
Is it? Okay.
I think it just needs a little delay.
There's like a little delay. There we go. All right. This is what the human trafficking sign looks like now. There is a printable PDF that's on our website as well. So if you go to www.tdlr.texas.gov, you can download a copy of this sign. It doesn't have to be in color. It can be in just plain black and white. Okay. On September 1st, for my instructors, how many instructors do we have in here? All right, a good amount of you. So on September 1st, as you're aware, we began replacing the instructor license with what we're referring to as the underlying license. For everyone who got their initial license through us and took their education here to get their Class A barber license, your operator license, as you're aware, you have to have that underlying license first before you could get the instructor license. Since it's no longer required, we're just dropping off the instructor term from your licenses. So if you currently hold an operator instructor license, that instructor term drops off and you will be issued an operator license. All right. The example here shows what the prior license was called and what the new license will be called. If you previously held the original underlying license, that license will be reinstated. So if you had a license and let it expire because you didn't need to hold both licenses, the instructor and the underlying, you will be reissued that old license number. If you've never held the underlying license number, you will get a new license number. So it will not be the same license number as your instructor license, okay? Do I lose the hours that I obtained as an instructor? No, you don't lose the hours. TDLR will retain that information in their database. You can request a license verification, which will confirm that you held an instructor license if you held it. And if you request a certified transcript, you will receive a transcript of hours and it will show the course type or course types that you took. So if you took multiple courses, let's say you hold all the licenses, that information will be on your certified transcript. It'll contain the course type, the enrollment dates, the hours that you took, and the schools you attended. So if you attended multiple schools, then all of that information will be showed on your certified transcripts. To request that, you can go to our website Again, www.tdlr.texas.gov. Click on license types and select your respective industry, whether it's barbering or cosmetology. Right now, they're still separated. We are working on a combined page. So for cosmetology, you'll click on forms and you'll go down to the out of state section. That's where you can find that form. For barbers, you just click on the license types, barbers, and then go to forms, and you'll find yours in just the regular individual forms. So as we've been talking about today, the laws and rules have been combined. That's what has been combined, not your license type. So if you're a Class A barber, you're still going to be the Class A barber. You'll hear that throughout the entire presentation. And if you're a cosmetology operator, you will continue to be a cosmetology operator. Those licenses are not combining. So for a Class A barber, you can shave with a straight edge razor. Cosmetologist, you can do eyelash extensions. Barbers cannot do eyelash extensions, and cosmetology operators cannot use a straight edge razor. You have to use a guarded razor. As I said earlier, the license types will still exist. The list of license types that still are intact are on the right-hand side. The only one that was deregulated was the instructor and the wig license. Question: did the Class A barber license and the cosmetology operator license merge to one license? Who knows the answer to this? The shape? Yes or no? Are you losing? Thank you. You're not losing the license. All right. Like I've been saying, Class A barber license is still required to perform barbering services, and the cosmetology operator license is still required to do operator services. So barbers, I know you really want to do those eyelash extensions. You still can't do them. I'm sorry. Okay. I know y'all were looking forward to it. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for your time. Next up is Derek Burkhalter.
So Derek's going to come up here and talk to you about the rules. Before we do that, I want to acknowledge that we have one of our advisory board members. He holds a Class A barber, and he's here with us in Fate Live, LaDietrich Leonard. He's part of buying two boards. We once had a barber board and a cosmetology board. Now we have a barber cosmetology advisory board. It consists of folks who hold an operator license, a Class A license, and we have school owners on there as well. So just want to let you all know that. Derek, floor is yours.
Thank you. Right, good morning, everyone. So my name is Derek Burkhalter. I'm the Assistant General Counsel for the Barbering and Cosmetology Program. So you may see me at advisory board meetings and things like that. So it's good to see all you barbers and cosmetologists out there. As you can tell, I haven't seen any of you in about 2.5 years. Mike over there. Sorry, that landed better in the other location. So I'm here to talk about the rulemaking process and where TDLR currently is in that process. So we have to implement House Bill 1560, and as everyone has been saying, it combined the two programs. So we used to have Occupations Code Chapter 1601 for barbers and Chapter 1602 for cosmetologists. And so what HB 1560 did was repeal both of those and put everything into Chapter 1603 for both. And so we're doing basically the same thing with our rules. For the rules, we had Chapter 82 for barbers, Chapter 83 for cosmetologists, and so we're just transferring everything into Chapter 82 and combining it into there. So any agency that does rulemaking, they have to follow a process that's set out in law called the Administrative Procedure Act. At TDLR, this is kind of a visual guide of what that process looks like. And this chart, it starts in the top left and snakes around and ends up in the bottom right. So just kind of going through this, starting with the rule idea. So here, the rule idea comes from the bill. House Bill 1560 tells us what we have to do. And so we drafted, a version of what we thought those rules should look like. And that draft, going to the second box, has to go through internal review and analysis. We have to look at basically to see if it puts a financial burden on anyone, because we don't want to put unnecessary burdens on people. So we do a full analysis of that and make sure it doesn't affect anyone adversely. And then we send it to the governor's office, and they just review it kind of for red flags and make sure there's no anti-competitive measures in here or things like that. And if we get the red flag, or if we get the okay from the governor's office, we then take the draft to the advisory board, and that's the first blue box that you see. And so that was the meeting that occurred on August 19th, where we kind of introduced the draft to the advisory board. They went ahead and voted to publish it to the public. And so we then filed the proposed rules in something called the Texas Register. And so the Texas Register is a publication of the state of Texas, and it basically gives notice of all agency actions. So public meetings, adopted rules notices, things like that. And so that publication was in the September 23rd edition. And that triggers a 30-day public comment period. And during those 30 days, anyone can write in and tell us what they think about the rules. That 30-day public comment period closed October 24th. We received a little less than 100 comments during that time. And we got comments from individuals, from schools, from organizations. We got some really great comments. And so we review all of those one by one. We look through them all. We see if they have any merit, if they might justify some modification to the proposed rules. And then, so we take all the comments to the second advisory board meeting, the blue box at the bottom. And that was the meeting that occurred on October 31st. If you haven't had a chance to watch that meeting, I highly recommend it, because we talked through the issues that were brought up by the comments, and we even made some kind of on-the-spot revisions to the rules. And at the end of that, the advisory board voted to recommend adoption of that revised version of the rules. So again, if you haven't seen that, I think it will give you a lot of insight into why the rules are the way they are now. So we then take that recommendation from the advisory board, and we go to the commission. Now, the commission is TDLR's governing body. There are our head bosses. So there's 7 people who are appointed by the governor's office, and they make all the important decisions for TDLR. And so the rules are not final until the commission actually adopts them. The advisory board is just advisory, so they're just making recommendations. So this commission meeting is planned to take place on December 6th. So that's the big day for these proposed rules. If you go to our website, you can find how to provide written comments before that meeting, and also how to sign up to provide oral comments at that meeting. You can actually speak for 3 minutes if you'd like. Again, December 6th, mark that on your calendars. If at that meeting they do adopt the rules, then we again file a notice in the Texas Register to let the public know that this is coming, it's about to take effect. And our target date that we're on track to meet for the effective date of these rules is January 1st. Now, keep in mind that January 1st date, that's not when everything takes effect. That's when all the health and safety standards become streamlined and the same. But the curriculum requirements, those new requirements will not take place until August 1st for the schools. And then for licensing purposes, on September 1st, all the new licenses will take effect, and the new curriculum requirements will be part of that licensing requirement. So that is the current plan. As you can see, we are kind of in the home stretch, and we're just at the very end, waiting to see what the commission will do. Okay, so we realize that this is really a lot to digest. It's a lot to take in. If you've gone out and read the proposed rules, they're very dense, very long. Even if you're an attorney, it's hard to figure out what's going on. And you know, we're just following what's legally required. So you see all the strike throughs and the underlines. These are the things we have to do to show what the changes are. But we tried to make it a little bit easier on the public to kind of understand how does this affect you individually and your personal license type. So on our website, we've created an online guide and I'm hoping my team can help navigate that.
Stand by.
Oh.
Let's go.
There it is.
Okay, here we go. Here. Okay, so this is the homepage for TDLR, which is tdlr.texas.gov, as you know. So you would go up to license types at the top.
There's a bit of delay.
It's a delay.
Okay. Well, so if it doesn't work, you would just go up to license types and you would pick either the barbering page or the cosmetology page. And you would scroll down to the news and updates, and kind of on the first paragraph under that, there will be, it says something like changes made by HB 1560. And then within that paragraph, there will be a link that says online interactive guide. Okay, so here, okay, we've made it to the barbering homepage now.
You may have a laser pointer there, Derek.
Oh, I do have it. It doesn't show up on the screen though. Oh, kind of. I can't see it that well. There we go. Okay, news and updates, licensee guide to House Bill 1560 changes. Within that paragraph, you'll see the blue link that says an online interactive guide. And that's going to take you to a separate page.
Is this a delay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there's just a little bit of a delay between the system and the projector, I guess. Okay, here we go. So this page is basically committed to the transition and what the changes are. If you scroll down a little bit to where it says, what does this mean for me? You're gonna see there's a drop-down menu box. There it is. And so you'll be able to actually use that drop-down menu box to pick your specific license type. And so you can see the list right here. I don't know if we're able to go into any specific one at this point. See if the delay lets us.
It'll get there.
Such suspense. Okay, so we picked cosmetology operator, and then you have to hit the go button. Okay, and then so you see a little summary has popped up below the box. So this tells you as a cosmetology operator what services that you can provide under the law. And then at the bottom, under the proposed rules, and there are a couple of bullet points explaining what the changes are as applied to your license type. So as you'll see, if you actually go to this for your license, I think you'll see that there are actually very few changes that affect you individually. So most of what we've been talking about up here are changes on the department's end of things. It's a change in how we administer things, but your actual license types will change very little. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and call that the conclusion, I guess, of that part. So let me introduce next our Director of Field Inspections, the great Eric Beverly.
That lovely introduction. Good morning, how are y'all?
Morning.
Morning.
Well, thank y'all for being here. I'm gonna stand on this spot. There's a piece of tape. A brief stint in theater. Mark, right? Okay, roll. So I'm going to talk to you about two subjects today. I'm going to talk to you about risk-based inspections, and I'm going to talk to you about e-inspections or electronic inspections. And I think at some point there will be a PowerPoint slide. Okay. So you've heard about House Bill 1560. This was TDLR's sunset bill. This was passed by the legislature, and the legislature said, and the Sunset Commission said, we want you to change how you do inspections. So for many years, we have come out based on usually prescribed periods that are set out in statute. We come out to full-fledged cosmetology salons or barber shops once every 4 years, to specialty shops once every 2 years, and to schools twice a year. So what they have done is they have given us some specific statutory criteria to consider. And these are the key risk factors that are set out in statute for us. They have asked us to look at each individual business or school and make a determination about whether or not that business or school has violated a law, rule, or order, and how many times they have done so, right? They also were kind and they gave us the flexibility to add other risk factors that we deemed appropriate. So September 1st of this year, we began conducting risk-based inspections in the Barbering and Cosmetology program. These are the factors that we're looking at. Recidivism. So a recidivist is somebody who has violated a law, rule, or order of the commissioner or the agency multiple times within the last few fiscal years. We're also looking at how somebody did during their last inspection. Typically, and I know many of you have probably had inspections, inspectors have come out and they've left you with a paper proof of inspection form. There are three basic outcomes from any inspection. One is that no corrections are needed, right? That's the best case. There were no violations. That's great. The next step up is corrections needed. These are lower level violations that are not forwarded to our enforcement division, but they need to be corrected, right? And then the highest level is direct enforcement violations. These are things that are serious enough that you still need to correct them, right? But you're going to be contacted by our enforcement division. In some databases, we're able to look at a history of violations going back several years. And then we're also considering when your business or school was last inspected. And I went the wrong way.
It's delayed.
It's delayed.
Okay. So the second item I'd like to talk to you about today is e-inspections. So we were very fortunate. We worked with the Texas Department of Information Resources and Microsoft, and we were able to secure an electronic inspection system, and we have developed that. So many of you have received paper proof of inspection forms, right? You receive a carbon copy. They're handwritten. They can be hard to read. Inspectors use varying descriptions, right, of the violations, some shorter, some longer. So now you will be receiving via email a PDF that has typed out all the information about your inspection, including any violations. There will be standardized descriptions of the violation and a citation, of course, so that you can look at that and come into compliance. Okay, so you'll receive an electronic copy of your inspection instead of a handwritten copy. There are display requirements for the barbering and cosmetology industry, of course. So please print it out and display it as appropriate. It's my sincere hope that it will be easier to read for you and for members of the public that wish to look at it. And it'll still have all the corrective actions that you need to take described on the form.
So hopefully you can see this. If you, it's going to be very important go forward that we have a good email address for you. Many of you have already provided that, but if you haven't, or if your email needs to be updated, please go out to this site and update your email address. And let me explain why. So one of the things that the legislature and the Sunset Commission observed is that they felt like we were not doing a good job as an agency of doing follow-up inspections. So the new electronic inspection system has been designed to make it easier for us to communicate about what y'all have done to get into compliance, right? So once we come out and we find violations, how many days do you have to correct that violation, to fix it? Here in 10 and 30. What do y'all think it is? 10. That's right. Gold star. Can you do it 3 times? Yes, 10 days, and then 30 days to acknowledge, right, that you have made those corrections. So I hope it's easy for y'all. What you have to do once you receive the email is there will be an explanation in the body of the email. You can reply directly to the email. Please don't change the subject heading or anything like that. You can just reply, and you're free to include any documentation or photos or information about the fixes that you have made. So, you know, if you set up a no reply at yahoo.com email, right, you're obviously not going to receive the proof of inspection form. So please provide us with a valid email that you have access to and you expect to maintain access to. If we come out to visit you and you don't have an email on file, don't worry. Inspectors will be able to take an email address for you at that time. You'll simply need to acknowledge that you're giving us permission to use that email for business purposes, and we will send it to you that way. So that concludes my time with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
So folks, thanks, Eric. So I've seen a few of you, and maybe those are online trying to snap pictures and trying to clip those. Not to worry, this presentation will be available on the website after. I'm not going to promise you at the end of the day, but it's going to be up there. This is our last show on the road, Austin, and we'll get those slides up there. The next presenters, we have actual barbers on staff, and we have cosmetologists on staff. We have Sean O'Neill. He's been a barber for 38 years. And we have Angela Sanders. She has held her instructor license for 15 years. They're going to talk to you about establishments. So those establishment owners that are virtual and present, you're going to hear a lot of things that's going to interest you for holding either a shop license or a salon license. They got some good information for you. So without ado, it's Angela up first.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good, good. I'm Angela Sanders. I'm the cosmetology program specialist. It's good to be here with you all, and thank you for coming out and joining us. Okay. My part of the presentation will be regarding the changes as they pertain to establishments.
It's a delay.
Okay. All right. Okay, the first change we have, this will be effective January 1st, 2023. A separate barbershop and cosmetology salon license will no longer be required to offer both barber and cosmetology services in the same establishment. Again, only one establishment license will be required. So in other words, on January 1st, if you have a barbershop license, you can begin to hire your you can begin to hire your cosmetologist to come in and offer cosmetology services. Vice versa, if you have a beauty salon license, you can bring your barbers in, begin to offer barbering services. Now, I do want to point out that this is strictly an option. It's an additional option for you all business owners. You don't have to, you're not required to offer both services. You know, by no means, we're not saying now you got to offer them both. No, this, like I say, this is just an option. So if you're currently operating as a barber shop and you want to keep it that way, just keep barbers, you can do that. If you're currently operating as a beauty salon and you just want to offer cosmetology services, we can do that as well. This is just meant to make it a little bit easier on those who may be interested in offering both services. Now, exactly what services can be offered in these establishments under the one license? All of them. So we got shaving and trims, haircuts and colors, hair removal, manicures, pedicures, aesthetics, hair weaving, and eyelash extensions. I think I covered them all. Like I say, basically all services can be offered. However, with that being said, still, only barbers can shave with the straight razor. Cosmetologists must still use a guarded razor. Only cosmetologists can do eyelash extensions. Again, as Yvonne said, barbers, y'all can't do eyelash extensions still. But you can offer them all under the same roof in the same establishment. All right. Another change affecting our establishments are the requirement for the new sanitation rule postings. Again, effective January 1st, all establishments, whether, just all establishments will be required to post the new combined sanitation rules within the establishment. Now, is this a new requirement? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. And I say that because this has always been a requirement for our barbershops, Barbershops have always had to post the sanitation rules. However, it was never a requirement for cosmetology. But effective January 1st, it will be a requirement for all establishments. Now, an alternative to posting these rules is to have your law and rule book available, your current law and rule book available. So you can either have that available or post the rules. Our rules are found on our TDLR website. You can access them, download them, print them from our TDLR website. Okay, now, bringing us to the question when we speak about the law and rule book. When will the new law and rule book be available? No, that's what y'all are wondering. And our goal for that is the fall of 2023. That's our target. Get those law and rule books out fall of 2023. Once the new law and rule books have become available, they'll be sent to the licensees upon the renewal of your licenses. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And actually, that was the end of my part of the At this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the rest of the presentation over to my partner in crime. This is Sean O'Neill. He is our barber program specialist.
We're gonna take a few minute break to figure out the situation here, the technical difficulties. So let's give us a few minutes.
Yeah, that's.
Restroom, don't forget the code if you're gonna go to the
It's for that.
again, I believe we resolved the issue. So we're gonna bring up on the second half is Sean O'Neill. Again, he's talking about establishments. As you all know now, we're using the term establishments instead of shops and salons, because why? They're gonna be able to do a lot of the things under the same roof, right? So for our terminology, we're using establishment. Doesn't mean you need to change your sign that says barbershop, right? You keep all of that. You keep it salon if you like. It's just that license paperwork that's gonna come to you. It's gonna say Barber Cosmetology Establishment. So without further ado, Sean O'Neill.
They showed you my 38 years experience, my 38 years of experience, but I have 4 years of garage experience. They didn't want to add that because, but I'm able to shave. I come with a ton of experience, so I'm able to shave my head with a dry razor, no latherizer, no hot towel. Don't y'all try that. New option for displaying individual licenses will be available January the 1st, 2023. I want to talk about some new options for cosmetologists and barbers under the new statute. 1603-2107 says an original license with an attached photo can be displayed near the licensee's workstation or kept at the reception desk, or a digital image of the license with a photo of the license holder. In 2012, the cosmetology rule 8370 was amended, and that which allowed cosmetologists to display licenses at the reception desk. So during inspections, it wasn't uncommon to go into a beauty salon or a specialty salon and be handed a notebook or a photo album with licenses inside. Now this is a new option for barbers. Barbers they have the opportunity to display licenses in a photo album or a reception at the reception desk. With barbers, under the statute 1601-451, barbers were able to display licenses near the workstation. So it wasn't uncommon to go to a barbershop and see licenses in a frame near the workstation, all individual licenses. Now cosmetologists have this option as opposed to being at the workstations. What's new for both programs is the digital image. Barbers and cosmetologists can now display licenses on a computer, tablet, or phone. Effective January the 1st, 2023, scope of practice updated for barbers. Barbers barbers are able to remove superfluous hair from the neck up. So they're able to offer waxing services from the neck up. Because of this change in the scope of practice, barbers can now remove superfluous hair from a person's body. So barbers can offer body waxing. So that's brand new for barbers. And I have to be honest with you all, I had to open up my lady and my dictionary with all these new fancy words that we've inherited. It says Class A barbers will be able to remove superfluous hair from a person's body using depilatories, preparation or chemicals, tweezers or other devices or appliances, or any kind of descriptions. Wow. So barbers, you can update your price list January 1st. Updated license types. September 1st, 2023. Our barbershops, cosmetology salons, and dual shops will transition to the Barber and Cosmetology full service establishment license. So you all will be receiving a new license. The transition takes place September 1st, 2023. So I don't want you all standing by your mailboxes on September 1st thinking that that license is gonna be there. I don't want y'all to say, hey, that guy said I was gonna get my new license, and this September 1st, I haven't received my license. If you wanna complain, my name is Ray Rosario. Same rules apply for specialty salons. They will transition to a Barber and Cosmetology specialty establishment license, September the 1st. Same rules apply. Do not be standing by your mailbox. Again, my name is Dee McKeitron. Thanks.
Hey guys, my name is Angie. I'm one of the managers in education and examination. And today I'm going to talk, nope, it would help if it was the other way. About some signs for your schools. How many cosmetology schools do we have? Okay, this is new for you guys. The barber schools have always had to have the health and safety rules posted. So now cosmetology schools do as well, just like for establishments. They have to have them, so now the schools do as well. You can go on our website and print them off. There's no requirement as to what type of paper it has to be on, what color paper. But if you don't want to print it off, just like for the establishments, you can use the law and rule book, because there will be one combined law and rule book now. And as Sean and Angela said, hopefully fall 2023, there's a serious paper shortage. Just like there's a random shortage of all kinds of stuff. There is a paper shortage, so we hope to have them by fall of 2023. So either have the rules posted or have the law and rule book available. How many barber schools are there? Okay, you know how you had to have the barber students on all the walls? You don't have to have that now. If you are forever attached to it, you can leave them there. You don't have to take them down, but that's no longer required. However, for all schools, barber and cosmetology, you must have a sign that is clearly visible to any client entrance, and it must have the words school student practitioners in 10-inch block letters. If you have a back parking lot where clients enter, you have to have one back there. Side parking lot, wherever the client comes, so that someone coming to your school knows that these are not licensed barbers or licensed cosmetologists practicing inside. Lets them know they're students. For high schools, do we have any high schools? Work with your administrators on where that sign, I mean, I know you probably have a classroom inside the building. They're not gonna let you post this sign outside the front door of the high school. Just work with them on where to put that sign. And it can be any color you want. You guys are the most creative industry there is. You create masterpieces and works of art every day, so be creative. We joke that it could be felt paper and glitter if you want. If it's outside, that might not work so well. You're gonna be replacing that sign a lot. But it can be whatever colors or anything you want it to be, just has to be the 10-inch block letters and specifically state school student practitioners. And this, along with the health and safety rules, the date for all these to be posted is January 1, 2023. And next I will have Lorraine.
Good morning. My name is Lorraine Schroff, and I am the team lead in the Education and Examination Division that works directly with the Barber and Cosmetology schools. So I'm sure I've talked to many of you. We answer those shears questions that come in, help you make those corrections. So I do want to mention as I start this morning that we are up to over 800 Barber and Cosmetology schools. We were running between 400 and 500. So in comparison, that's a huge increase. So even though we have over 800 schools, still the same number of team members answering those shears questions. So it is taking us a little bit longer to answer those. So I will promise you though that we do get to those just as quickly as we can. So Rebecca mentioned a little bit earlier about that 25-to-1 ratio. That is for your teacher and your student ratio. That has not changed. It's still the same, 25-to-1. Now, if you have students in the school that are doing a teacher training course, those are not counted in that ratio because we are no longer regulating that portion and those courses are no longer required. So remember your permitted students that are clocking hours, that's what applies to that 25-to-1 ratio. I will also mention that on the digital images that was mentioned by Sean for the establishments, that does not apply to schools. You still need to have your book with your student permits available, so when the inspector comes in or contacts you to see that information, you still need to do the same things you're doing today. So that digital image does not apply there. The new school licenses, all right? There will no longer be a separate barber and cosmetology school license starting September 1, 2023. So that means that that separation, are there any schools in here that have both the barber and the cosmetology? Good, okay. So that separation now where you have the barber school on one side and the cosmetology school on the other, and you keep your students separated, that will no longer apply September 1, 2023. You will have one license and you can offer all courses under that one license and have all students in that same location. Location and address is the key there. There has to be a license, a school license for every address. So if you have two schools that have two different addresses, you will still have to have a separate license for both addresses. Or you have the option of closing one of those locations and combining everything into the other, because that's going to save you some money. Remember, when you apply for those school licenses, that's $500. And now you can do that all under one license. So I'm really excited about that for you schools. That's going to save you a little bit on those renewals, and also make things a little bit easier by having all your students together. So those barber and cosmetology students will be able to go to class together for that first 700 hours. If you look at the rules in 83.202, that's where you're going to find the breakdown of the different course curriculum types, those standards that we have for those hours. And so the separation will be when you get to those 300 hours for your barbers that learn their shaving techniques. The separation for those cosmetology operator students will be those 300 hours where they're learning the eyelash extension techniques. So that will be that separation. All right. So the school licenses will start going out September 1, 2023. Now, the curriculum portion, if you will remember, Derek mentioned August 1st date. You can start sending in those applications earlier than September 1, 2023, if you have new courses that you want to add at your school. Because we want to give you enough time, especially for the high schools and colleges that sometimes start class in August. Others may not start till September, but we want to give you enough time to have those courses approved. And then we'll start issuing those new certificates of approval that show all those courses that you have been approved to offer. If you don't make any changes in those courses that you're offering, then you don't need to send in anything, because we're still going to have that information on hand. Last thing I want to share is about email addresses. It's not currently required that schools collect email addresses for your students when you're enrolling them. However, if you will start collecting those email addresses for your new students and for those students that are currently enrolled, you can change that information by sending us that information through Shears. You can change address, phone number, and email address in Shears. Or you can have the student go to the website and they can change their contact information themselves. But if we have an email address on file, when they go to take their exams, they'll be able to receive an electronic email of that exam report. They will have that if there's an email address on file. If we don't have that email address on file, then that's not going to be an option for them to receive that electronically. And that concludes. I'm going to let Ray come up here and do the wrap up. And I do want to thank each of you for joining us today.
Guys, so you heard a lot about the different things going on. One of them you heard from the beginning of instructor license being replaced, and it's going to be an operator license. You heard just recently on schools operating, teaching under one. Remember earlier in the presentation when Yvonne was saying, you have to, and others have said it too, you have to hold the license in that scope of practice to teach, right? So in other, I'll give you some examples that I heard in other cities. After the meeting, some of the school owners came up to me and said, you know, Ray, I think I'm gonna get my barbering license, so I have both of them, because I'm gonna be the instructor at my school, so I'm gonna be able to teach both sets of students. And I was like, that's your prerogative, right? You can do that. If you don't wanna do that, then you hire a cosmetologist to teach the cosmetology, so forth. Although they're under one roof, technically, they're still sort of, the scope is different. Remember, they said barbers are barbers, operators are, they're gonna still be separate. How many school owners are here? Who is the school owners again? What's your name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, can I call you Jennifer?
Yes.
Jennifer, so Jennifer, let's just say, however you wanna do it at your school, right? You're going to decide. The power is in your hands. You know, they said we don't have an instructor license, right? Well, Jennifer, you're gonna decide who you're gonna hire, right? You might wanna hire Eric, who just got his license last week, right? He has his operator license. Hey, Eric, you wanna teach at my school? But that's your choice, right? The power is back in your hands. Or you're gonna decide, hey, I've had individuals who taught at my school for years and they've held an instructor license. They know what they're doing, they've been doing it. Well, I'm gonna hire these folks. You may decide, Jennifer, I'm gonna teach, and you heard, can't remember who said it, yeah, Rebecca. You heard Rebecca say, I'm gonna do a preparation course. You can. Just be honest with the students and the people in your school to say, hey, you're not gonna get a license if you take this course. But I require it at my school, because I wanna have those upper echelon, you know, it's teachers at my school. I want you to take this prep course, because this is how I want you to teach at my school. So it's your choice, right? Putting the baton back on you, not the department saying, you gotta have this license, et cetera. So look at it under that perspective, understand that. The schools, I know you're probably saying, Jennifer, how do I do this? How do I post the hours if I have this student and this student? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that yet. We're working on that. We're gonna be sitting in with a big old whiteboard. Okay, here's how Shears currently works. This is what we're doing. You know, Jennifer is gonna have students sitting in the class at the same time. How does she know what to do? And so when Eric and his team come out on that risk-based inspection, you heard him talk about that, they're gonna understand, Jennifer, who are these people? You know, are these just taking a teacher preparation course? Are they barbers? Are they So we need to figure that out, right? We're not all there yet. We're just telling you right now what's happening, where we're going. You heard Derek, the rules are gonna be adopted. Those rules to be adopted in December, you keep in mind, it's not that those rules are gonna determine whether the merge is gonna happen. I want you all to understand that. The law already passed. That has happened. Basically, what the law says, think of it this way, here's the law, and you heard Dee Dee, this is how you interior design building. They basically told TDLR, this is what I want you to do, now go do it. And Derek had to draft the rules saying, okay, they want us to do this, so I'm gonna put this in the rule, I'm gonna add these things, because that's what they told us to do. Now, Derek and the whole team, we've all put our thoughts to it. Advisory board, hey, did we hit the mark? With the comments, did we hit the mark? Now it's gonna go to the commissioner and say, hey, we did what Sunset told us to do in the law. We put the rules together, conform to the law. Did we hit the mark? And that's what they're gonna adopt to make sure that we're doing our homework, is what that comes out to. Now, that's only phase one. You'll see a lot of things that are not gonna change, and you probably have questions. Are you gonna do this? Are you gonna do that? Please keep sending in those comments. You'll hear Derek when he does deliver those rules, and there may be questions from the commissioners. You're gonna hear, how about these things, and are they gonna consider these comments? We're not being dismissive. There's gonna be phases on rulemaking. So this is phase one, because they've told us, you gotta do this, and you heard the magical date, September 1, 2023. We gotta have this up and running by that day. That's the mark we have to hit. Thereafter, we're gonna come back in. okay, Derek, we need to fix these other things. Here's phase 2, here's phase 3. So there's gonna be a lot of aftermath on this of what we're gonna do and how we continue to try to get this where we want it to be. So I don't want you to think that we're just not paying attention. There is a process, as you heard, Derek, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, and so forth, okay? We're going to go through some of the questions now that you got done. I saw one, I'll start off with the big one. I heard a lot of folks in the poll everywhere ask, why don't TDLR allow grandfathering for the instructor license? Remember, it's not our call. We can't do that. If there's a grandfathering clause, and those who don't know what grandfathering means, it means to allow someone to continue to operate under the old way, I'm just gonna call it that, and only those who are coming in now would have to abide by the new way. So they grandfather all of the existing folks. They didn't provide that in the law. Sometimes, and I haven't seen actually a grandfathering clause in a while, but I've seen them before. It's in the law and it tells you, these people before this date and after this date, right? That wasn't provided in this law. It just said, this is a change, this is what's happening, these licenses are going away. So we don't have the ability to enact a grandfathering. So I just want you all to know that, that's how that works. I don't know how we're gonna do this. Maybe somebody reads it. Can you read them, Angie, this, which I wonder? We'll try to get, so I'm not gonna answer all of these. I'm not an expert on all of this. I'm gonna defer to the group. And if you guys, the folks here live, if you have a question now, you wanna raise your hand, you're welcome to ask the question. But we're trying to go through all of these as well. But if you have something to add, just please raise your hand and we'll call upon you. Do you have one, something?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So we have the barber and cosmetology school. Y'all talk about us joining theory. What book are we to use, a joint book?
Good question. So let me tell you this way. So Jennifer, you have both as well. So what are you doing now, right? When you're teaching your Class A barbers, you know they're gonna go to PSI to take the exam, right? In the PSI exam, the Candidate Information Bulletin, it tells you the reference book of what those questions are being referenced. Same as COS. The exam has not changed. We're gonna be still referencing the same thing. So if you're teaching a barber and you're trying to prepare them to be the best barber and or the best cosmetologist, right? You're gonna teach them what they need to know, and you wanna teach them to the topics, right, that we're gonna be tested on. So that's what you're gonna do. I can't stand here and tell you how you're gonna do it, because remember, our rules does not have a curriculum. There are technical requirements where you develop your curriculum based on those requirements. So you're gonna put those together and you're gonna teach those accordingly. Remember, you have to have a Class A person teaching the Class A shaving, that kind of thing, right? And if you're gonna, they can't do body waxing over here, they could take some superfluous hair off the Class A barbers now. But that's how that works. So it's upon you to make sure you do it the right way. I can't tell you how you're gonna teach.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And again, we'll walk through this. And Dee Dee said this in another meeting, we're at 70%. There's some of the things I don't have the answers to yet because this is something new. Remember, a few years ago before COVID, remember schools, we were telling you there was a statement that went out from the department and we said you could operate and you could teach barbers and cause under the same roof, but not at the same time. Remember that was that statement? And the reason we said that then, because there was two separate laws and rules. And so we understood that I could use the same facility, but I can't commingle them. But now they're coming together and you can commingle. So you're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do this. Maybe some examples, if I have one barber or one cosmetologist and they're saying, hey, Ray, you're the instructor, I wanna get both licenses. Well, then if I have both licenses, well, I'm gonna teach both of them. Right? If I'm gonna have to be mindful to my student that if one is sitting there and say, I don't wanna be a barber. Well, would you want that poor student to sit through the class of barbering where you could just say, Well, you can go wherever you're gonna go, right? And I'm gonna teach that piece on a different note. But you're gonna have to have your curriculum laid out on how you're going to do that. Okay? Because you wanna make, and again, I'm not telling you how to do it, but we're gonna give you also some tools so that you understand how those hours are gonna be posted in Shears, because I don't know the answer to that yet. So let's wait to worry on that, but just know what we've said today. That's what's happening with the rules, the allowance of that. The establishments can have one license, you can bring in the licensed folks under one roof, same as a school, you don't have to pay for 2 licenses. If you choose to open several, you can. The beauty on high schools, there are high schools here? The beauty with high schools, I think, is that now some of those schools, the administrators of the schools will say, well, we don't have monies to build out a barber. Remember, that was a big problem. But now if they're using the same thing, well, I foresee that we may even have even more, Lorraine, more schools, not just only 800, it may go up to 1,000. Because now they're like, oh, I can offer both. So I'm hoping that the population is gonna really increase for barber. What's another?
How is the practical going to merge?
When they said, did they say anything about, is it practical exam
I'm
or
assuming
practical?
exam. I don't know if it was someone here or at home, but the question is, how is the practical going to merge?
Are they talking about, if they're talking about the practical, lessons that they do, they're still, right? If you're teaching Class A barber, you're gonna have practical, requirements that a Class A would need versus, an operator, so they're gonna be different still. Sean, you wanna?
Yeah, and also if you're talking about a Class A barber and a cosmetology operator, then that's not gonna merge. That Class A barber is still gonna be that Class A barber, so
Correct.
the practical exam is still gonna apply the way it applies today for the Class A barber and for the cosmetology operator.
Remember, when those students complete the education work at your school, they are still gonna take the corresponding exam at PSI, both the written and both the practical. So if you have one person wanting to get both licenses, how many exams do you think they're gonna take? 4, right? Written for barber, written for cos, practical for barber, practical for cos. 4 exams. It's still the same just as it is now.
When can commingling begin? January 1 or September 1?
Good question.
Okay.
The commingling is September 1, 2023. Remember, we're doing all the work in the back end. I know some of you all like, oh, I want to do this now. We don't have the structure put in place for you guys to do that yet. It's September 1.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it's because I noticed here that school, apparently they can, August 1st, for the Class A barber and cosmetology operator be in the same class, 700 hours out of the 1,000.
That's the curriculum.
Ah,
That's the curriculum. He was at, for those of you here, what does it say in the handout? I don't have the handout with me.
The curriculum is in the rule to start August 1st, so that you can go ahead and have that approved. Remember, you have to have that
It
approved.
says,
Operation.
it's in the last, where? It says schools will be able to start teaching Class A barber students
yes.
and cosmetology operator students in the same class for 700 hours of a 1,000 hours.
Right, and that's that last page, if you look at the header, that says begins August 1, 2023, but that's the new curriculum standards that take into effect. And so part of those, that curriculum stuff, you'll see it in the proposed rules, that's under 83.202. You'll see that new layout. And again, that's the technical standards for you guys to develop that course. And remember, you're gonna have that one certificate of approval. You know how you currently have that and it says the courses you're able to teach? So if you're gonna start teaching both of them, it'll eventually say Class A barber, cosmetology operator, manicurist, that sort of thing.
Okay, it seems to me that the Sunset Commission did not read the commentary from the professionals in this field, or they chose to ignore it. How do we change that 12 years from now?
Say again, Didi?
They don't have to wait 12 years, explain that process.
Well, so every 2 years, right? And it's gonna happen coming up now, second Tuesday of the odd year, 2023, there is legislative session. That's when bills are introduced, right? That's when changes, if you guys want changes, that's when, people go to the they look at their senators, they look at their legislatures, and they say, hey, I want these type of change. That's how bills are created. Then they go through the process of becoming a law. So those type of changes it's not TDLR making those changes, right? When they make those changes there and the bills become law, that's how this happened here. The bill was introduced, goes through the whole, I won't even go into the bill making process and how it flows through, but once it becomes a law, that's when it goes to the oversight agency, whichever is affecting, in this case, Barber Cos, comes to TDLR and say, well, here's a new law, here's your instructions on what you need to do. So those things happen at the legislature, those type of changes, not at TDLR. So if you're trying to put forth some changes, remember that same thing happened with the 1,500 hours to 1,000. So and you have schools that have gone to the Capitol, right, and say, hey, these are what we want and these are the things we want, that kind of thing. That's how those changes occur, not through TDLR. And you heard Dee Dee, we cannot go on your behalf to say, hey, we want some rule changes or some law changes because we think this needs to happen. It's not our battle, and we're not allowed to do such. That's called lobbying.
Is there going to be continuing education for Cosmos to transition? Anyone in the room?
So,
Like Barber crossover?
So they're saying, is there any continuing education? So let's just talk about continuing education. Maybe this will help. Continuing education for cosmetology is still there, right? When you go to renew, it says, hey, have you done your CE? And if you haven't, you can't renew. If you do, it renews, right? So for barber, there will be continuing education. Remember, it's all gonna live under one rule, one law. So barber continuing education will not start until 2025. Maybe you're asking, why so long, right? That's a 2-year cycle. So these implementation of these laws, you remember September 1, 2023, that's when we're implementing and all this takes place and we all put them under one roof and everyone gets their license. So you can get that new underlying license. So starting there's a 2-year period. We, TDLR, we're gonna work with continuing education providers. We're gonna work with the advisory board members, work group, to figure out how many hours are we doing for barber. I presume we're gonna kind of be in the same scope, right? That's I don't wanna sit here and tell you how much it's gonna be, because that has to go through them. And everyone, we have to decide and put that in the rule, just like it is in COS, right? So you'll see continuation for barbers will exist. We'll have approval of courses, approval of providers. We'll have to go out and educate all of the barbers and talk to them about it. Hey, this is new, like we're doing today, right? This is new and these are the changes. So we're gonna make a little get together specifically for barbers on CE, and we're gonna do the same for the providers and letting them know these are the types of courses you all now need to develop. You need to approve these. It needs to be, I want it to be as clear for the barbers to say, hey, this is a shaving course and I will get credit. I don't want it to say, I'm offering an operator course. Some courses may allude on the title that it's operator, and a barber may be able to take it, but it's like, well, that doesn't apply to me. So I want to make sure that our communication is good so that everyone understands. So you'll see that, and some folks say, well, if I have a barber and an operator license, how many hours do I need to take for continuing education? Well, it will only be one if the requirements are the same, because it's the same hours, right? And it will apply to both licenses. So we'll wait on that, but just know barbers will have CE beginning 2025.
Will current cosmetology license holders be able to combine license with barber license when renewing? What are the requirements?
No, the simple answer is no. There's no combo. You're not gonna get a barber / operator, if that's what the question is being asked, right?
So.
Remember, there are separate licenses. You got your education, your study, and your exams and you get that license. If you want to hold the other one, you get the other license. Remember, it's still sort of the same thing as it is now. Y'all know the crossover, right? Schools? That's what's going on, right? I want a crossover license. Sure, you can get it. We don't call it crossover anymore. Why? Because there's not two rules. It's just one. Crossover really meant I'm going from chapter 82 to chapter 83, or I'm going from chapter 83 to chapter 82. That's how that kind of was born. So you're still going to do that, and you still need to take those examinations and get the license accordingly.
But you don't have to wait a year to do so anymore.
Right.
After.
So what Angie is saying is, remember the crossover, if I went to school, to your school, and I got a Class A barber license, and then I decide, hey, you know what, I want to do the crossover and take the 300 hours of eyelash extension and that type of course and get my operator license, I couldn't right away. I had to sit and wait because I had to hold that license for a year, right? Y'all know that? Y'all nodding your head? So you have to sit, same thing with operator. If you're gonna do a crossover, you have to sit and wait hold that license for a year. You don't have to do that anymore, right? Because they're all under one. The student can decide, I wanna take both of them, right? So you're gonna teach those courses. That's like saying, I wanna get a manicure license and an esthetician license. We'll take the topics that are necessary to do so.
Why is it a requirement to have the Stop Human Trafficking sign?
Angela?
This is actually a requirement, again, a legislative requirement. This is not TDLR. This was mandated through legislation, and this took effect. This started with the cosmetology establishments and schools. And now all establishments, including barbers, are required to have this.
But also be aware that you're gonna see this in a doctor's office, you're gonna see this in a dentist's office, you're gonna see this everywhere you go. State requirements across all health industries are mandated to do this by the legislature. So you'll see this sign everywhere. It's basically the short answer to elaborate. It's not just you.
Thanks, Dee.
It's the airports too.
In the
Would
airports too.
reciprocity licenses be included?
I don't.
I'm not sure.
Reciprocity does not, sure.
Yeah.
Nothing changes for reciprocity. You still have to meet the substantial equivalence requirements. So depending on what state someone's coming from, if their curriculum and license requirements are equivalent to our requirements, then they'll get a license. Otherwise, if they're not equivalent, they may have to hold their license for a certain time frame, or they may have to take the exam. It just depends on the scenario.
Will that reciprocity details be updated as well? I'm a perfect example. I got my license in Washington State. It had to be active for 2 years before I could transfer it to Texas. Because at the time Texas was $1,350 and Washington was $1,000. But now that Texas is $1,000, will that reciprocity?
Yes, we've
requirement
already looked
change?
at all of that information. As soon as the curriculum went down to 1,000 hours, I got with Sean and Angela. I rely on them a lot to provide me with some additional expertise. And we did go through almost every state, I'm pretty sure, to see what their requirements are. We're still learning about other states' requirements, things that they have discontinued. Like some states have discontinued their apprenticeship program. Some states have decreased their requirements as well, like we did. So it just depends. And as we learn, as we get people from other states that are coming to us, they'll say, oh, well, we don't have that anymore. So we'll have to go back. As soon as we get information about that, I get with Sean and Angela and get their input on whether or not we can reduce the experience requirements.
That will also create options for school owners looking to hire Class A barbers to teach.
Correct.
Remember, that reduction of hours happened not.
Sure. I'm talking about reciprocity as we look for a pool of people to hire from.
When dropping a Class A barber student, will Shears ask if the student's tuition is paid, similar to what is currently requested for programs under the cosmetology umbrella?
So this is not, I just want to say this first, this is not a change, nothing has changed on that because of the merge of Barber Cause, none of that has changed. This question has been asked in all of the cities, actually. And for schools, let me see if we can say this, where the agency is not here to hold students' hours hostage, right? If they clock the hours, and you as a, Jennifer, you as a school, you allow your students to sit, and you did whatever arrangement you did for them to pay you, if they finish their hours, they get to test, and they get a license. If you come to us and say, why you let them test, they haven't paid me, well, that's on you. You didn't collect that money, right? Now, if that student clocks 800 hours, for example, Jennifer, and they leave your school, they don't like your school, whatever happened, and they go to your school, and they say, hey, I already clocked 800 hours in Jennifer's school, and it's gonna show not paid. In the law, it says those are transferring hours. Those hours won't count when you go to a school B, right? They would have to clock 1,000 hours in order to finish. Now, in our system, it'll show 1,800 hours, but the 800 hours won't count. Now, that student can go back to Jennifer and say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and pay you. And then clock 200 of your hours, and if you didn't collect the hours, the monies for the 200 hours, they can sit and test and get a license. That was on you to collect money for the 200 hours, right? You see how that works? So it's only transferring, and it's really up to the schools to collect that money and make that right between your contracts with the student. That has not changed. That's always been like that.
For schools facilitating both barber and cosmetology programs, will they be required to have the barber school barber students outside the school entrance? As we said, it needs to say school student practitioners now, because there's no separate barber school, cosmetology school. It's one license, so it just needs to say school student practitioners.
And maybe they're asking also in barbers' schools, you remember how you have the sign inside your lab and it says barber schools on all 4 walls, remember that? You can leave that up if you want, or you can take it down, right? That's not the requirement anymore. The requirement is what Angie is saying, it's that new sign on the entrance, visible, 10-inch block, school, and it needs to say specifically those words, school student practitioner. That is in the law. We didn't make that up. That's in the law, and you'll see it in the rule, right? We put that in the rule. You'll see it in the rule as well.
What if
Yeah.
we have the sign that says student practitioner?
Say that again?
What if the sign only says student practitioner?
It would be a violation of the rule.
So we have to say school.
School student practitioner.
Okay.
Dash.
Thank you.
Right, school student practitioner. Yes.
And we have 2 different classrooms, one for barber, one for cosmo. Each room has to have the school student practitioner, or just by a door that
The
client-
rule in the law says client entrance. So if you have, I think, Angie's example was if you have an entrance on the back side where they park, for example, or where that setup is, you have to have a sign at that entrance. If you have an entrance in the front, you'll have to have a sign at that entrance. And you heard for high schools, you're not gonna put that outside on the street, right, or the highway, whatever, entrance of the high school. So work again with your administrator. It'll be somewhere outside of the classroom. You know, schools have like a hallway. Maybe there's a sign outside the door where they enter.
Okay. Always.
So if I have a normal cosmetology license, can I now become a high school instructor without an instructor license? Or will I have to get another license?
Does anybody wanna help me answer that one? No, seriously, what do you think, Jennifer?
Up to the school that's doing the hiring.
Right. It's up to the school. And what if the school is teaching cosmetology courses?
They could hire them,
Which one?
the cosmetology.
Correct.
Cosmetologists.
Can they teach the Class A barber? No, right? So they have to have that license. Just think of it, it's the same thing like when you were doing, remember previously you had, instructor, operator, class A, barber instructor, you had manicure instructor. You didn't really need the manicure instructor, right? Because the overlying instructor can do it. But some people wanted that manicure instructor, so they had the manicure instructor. Well, just strip off the instructor, right? That term, instructor's gone, and you just have to hold the license in the topic that you're gonna teach. So if you just have, and I don't know if we even have just a manicure school, but let's just say you're just teaching manicuring, well, you can hire somebody who has a manicure license to teach manicuring, right? But you can, the cosmetology, the full license can teach all of it. So just know it's always a license type for that scope of practice.
How do you determine which shops have violated rules, laws, and orders? Who reports new cases that need inspections or need to be reviewed with no prior violations?
Did he get all of that, Eric?
Okay. So the, the violations of laws, rules, and orders, check order.
However,
Then who reports new cases that need inspections? Okay. So, what we do in terms of previous violations of laws, rules, and orders is that we're looking at enforcement division data. So if somebody makes a complaint, right, then that complaint would need to go through that process and be upheld, and then all the administrative remedies, which could include going to State Office of Administrative Hearings, all of that, or the agreed order, all of that work would need to be done first, and then that violation would be considered. And so if there are additional complaints against a business, right, then they would have to go through that same process before they would be considered. I hope that answers the question.
Somewhat.
Somewhat, it's your question?
It was my question.
Okay.
Yeah, so my biggest concern is I've been in a lot of shops, mostly to see how they're run, what they're doing, things like that. Lots of violations.
Right.
Lots of them. And for me to sit in there and understand that there are violations and nothing is being done freaks me out, since we are a health and safety for the public.
Right.
So really what that just says to me is, we'll see about it. It doesn't say we're actually taking steps to like correct these. It doesn't say anything about anyone actually doing any inspections. I know you guys said you have like a 2-year, you go through all these places. I haven't seen you in a bunch of shops. So that to me says that it's just kind of getting passed by, and when someone complains, we may look at it.
So these are observations that you have made?
Personally, yeah.
And you're not
Like,
an inspector?
And I mean, like, it comes
Right.
down to even having like a dog in a barber chair.
Okay. So if you see something like that, please file a complaint. You're able to do it on the website, and our enforcement division would be happy to look at those things.
Okay.
So, and we do conduct inspections, and we go out to businesses, and we now go out to businesses based on the risk level that they pose, which includes a previous violation of a law, rule, or order, or our own inspection results. So if our inspectors find a series of violations, we're prioritizing seeing that business and also following up with that business to ensure those violations have been corrected. So we do take it seriously. Thank you for your question.
Here, can I add, I want to add something to here. We really depend on you all. You know, inspectors go out, you know, and they do inspections based on a time period, but we depend on the public. You know, we don't know what goes on in a lot of these businesses. You know, unlicensed activity, sanitation issues. And when we get these type of complaints, we take them serious and we respond immediately. But we just depend on you all. So when you ever see these type of issues, please let us know.
Okay, if a salon is currently a dual licensed salon hiring cosmetologists and barbers, but only offering cosmetology services, will we still need to display
I think it's a barber pole.
and it has the letter B. So I'm
Barber
gonna
pole.
assume they're talking about a barber pole.
They're probably referring to the required signage for the dual salons, where if there's no barber present, you do have to post it as it has been. But according to the new set of rules that and laws, that's no longer a requirement. Because keep in mind, there will be no more dual license. You'll have that one establishment license. So that requirement will no longer be in effect.
Thanks, Angela.
Do schools still have to be accredited?
Accreditation is not a requirement for schools. It's a choice. If you choose to be accredited, of course, if you get approved, then you're gonna be able to offer those Title IV financial funds. But it is not a requirement for TDLR.
I wanted to know if there will be any new accommodations for barber students with learning disabilities to help them pass the written exam.
So that hasn't changed. We always have accommodations, ADA accommodations, PSI accommodates students, but we don't accommodate in a way to help them pass the exam, anyone, right? You have to pass the exam based on the knowledge that you've attained by the schools. There is no other, the provisions doesn't change that we've had in the past. Do we have a different exam? Is there a different exam for these set of individuals, or the district exam for these set of individuals? We offer the languages, right? And I think we just recently, Rebecca, we launched languages for Barber and Cos for
Korean and
Korean.
certified Chinese.
Korean and certified Chinese, and we have Spanish and Vietnamese. So languages are there, but we don't offer a service to help someone pass the exam. That's you, Jennifer, right? You're helping them at the school to get that knowledge, but we do still provide special accommodations. So I just want to make that distinction there.
What are the rules for reinstating an expired license?
So there's, in order to, it depends on when the license expired. If it's within 3 years from the expiration date, you just have to pay the late renewal fee. For cosmetologists, you have to complete the continuing education. And for barbers, since there is no continuing education, you would have to pay 2 times the regular renewal fee. If it's outside of that 3 years, you do have to retest. This is a law. This is not something that we can change.
Go ahead.
Okay, currently we have a cosmetology license for 60-something years we've been in business. Then about 3 years, we have a barber license.
School, right?
The school, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so speaking of accreditation, so how is this going, what license will we then be getting as a joint school license then to how that will, and we are accredited through NACAS. So how will those merge?
That will be a question actually for NACAS, as in what their requirements are gonna be. I don't know if that'll be still 2 separate applications, or if that will be combined in one. I can tell you that we do communicate directly with the accrediting agencies, letting them know, for example, when the hours went from 1,500 to 1,000, we communicated with them so that they knew that process was in place. So saying here, we will be communicating, hey, the laws and rules have changed for these 2 programs.
Okay, so what about the TDLR side of that question? How will y'all combine my 2 licenses?
So starting September 1, 2023, you will get 1 license.
Will it be a
You will
brand
not
new
have the separate barber and cos, it will be a barber cosmetology school license.
Okay.
So thank you, Lorraine.
Mhm.
So I don't know exactly what the physical letters and the words it's gonna say on the license, but let's just say it's gonna show TDLR and it's gonna say barber and cosmetology, right? Because it's one industry. Before it would say barber school, name of your school, Jennifer, and your license number, right? Now it's gonna say barber and cosmetology license, so we physically gonna have to reprint a license for all the schools, even if you're just gonna teach barbering, right? We're gonna give you a new license upon renewal. To Sean's point, don't wait in the mail. Where is it? I don't have it. It'll come and you'll get the license and it'll say your school name. And then on that certificate of approval, thank you. So let's just say you had just the barber and you had, class A barbering, you had barbering, manicure, that type of thing. And you're now gonna say, you know what, I only have one license now, I can teach both. Hey, Lorraine, I wanna do operator. Sure, you know, fill in the paperwork. She's gonna send you a new certificate of approval. It's gonna show you you're now approved to teach Class A barbering, manicure, cosmetology, it'll say operator, right? Operator, Class A, manicure. So that's how that's gonna work. If you wanna keep both schools, you'll just have two different licenses. They both will say barber cosmetology. If you wanna close one, it's up to you how you wanna do that. Yes.
Hey, to piggyback on that with the two different schools, and you said we can have both of them, Cosmo and Barber, does that mean our students can pass back and forth since our accreditor calls it an extension campus and not its own campus? So will TDLR allow us to have, say, theory in one building and then have, you know, parts of the other classes in clinic in the other?
What type
building?
of school is it? Is this a private school, a college?
It's a private.
Okay, do you have the same address for both?
No.
Then that's two separate licenses.
Okay.
License is based on the address, the location of the school. And the reason for that is for inspection purposes and for us to know where those students are located that are enrolled with the school. So if it's two separate addresses, you're still gonna have to have two separate licenses. Can they bounce back? No. The students can only attend one school at one location at a time.
Okay, so.
So you have, so you'll have, and thank you, Lorraine, so you'll have a clock in one school, a clock in the other, right? They're enrolled in Shears under this license number school, right? You have all that, they're enrolled over here, they just can't walk out the door, go over here, well, you're enrolled in this school,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you would have to drop them from that school, re-enroll them in this school. That's kind of, it's a, think
still
of it
two
as
separate
there's two separate schools.
Got it, okay.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, if I have a barber license and a cosmetology school license on the same campus, we operate at different times to keep them separate. I'm gonna get one license with a new number.
Correct,
Awesome. Thank you.
correct. Yes, I mean, if you, you know, and to your point, if you have different school, let's say you're operating Barber and Cos, we're gonna give you one license that says, oh, if you wanna keep it that way, you can still just do Barber in one and Cos in the other, that's your prerogative, right? So, go ahead.
But where will the license be held if we got barber and cosmetology in the same building but different halls? Do we get a duplicate license for the other?
At a high school you're
Yes,
talking about,
yes,
do you
high
have it in a different classroom?
There are exceptions for high schools.
Okay.
For your
okay.
public
I'll
schools,
wait.
because, you know,
Yeah.
you're limited. If you actually look at the law and rules, it states for a public school,
Mhm.
any part of the campus, as long as you're teaching barber or cosmetology, can be used for those purposes under one license. Now, this school here, what did you say your school was?
Private school.
Private school? If you have a way of combining those two suites, where they're combined, hallway, opening a door, then that could be one license. If you have that entrance where it's combined, either with a hallway or a door that you're, you know, opening into a wall, that could be considered one license, even though it's in two different suites, because they're connected. To where now, you're not allowed to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For accreditation purposes, can we please still have our school license say post-secondary facility or education? Because it didn't say that and then it does now, and I still needed to say that for accreditation purposes later.
There
I know.
is that
Is it
separate
still?
identifier still in the law and rules between private, public, post-secondary.
Awesome.
And Derek, if you don't mind making a note of that, because that is something we can take into consideration when we finalize those templates.
That would be awesome because it
yeah.
always causes a problem with NACIS.
Yeah,
Yes.
we will be, as Lorraine said, we will be communicating with the accreditation agency, the Veterans Commission, the Department of Education, just like we did when we move from the 1,500 hours to 1,000. They're in the need to know, so we communicate with them.
How will the license requirements and inspections change for galleries, salon establishments leasing to individual licensees?
That won't change. I know with galleries, what we've been doing in the past with gallery salons. And this is just, we're just being courteous. We schedule appointments, we let them know what day we're coming, and we do inspections. Well, that's gonna change. That's never been written in the rules. We just have been doing it. Since we've gone to risk-based, we're just going to do regular routine inspections. Benefit for some galleries, if galleries hold 2 licenses, some galleries hold a barbershop permit and a beauty salon license. Well, that's gonna change. Once they receive that establishment license, only 1 license is required. So you don't have to renew 2 separate licenses anymore. So that's gonna be the change with galleries.
Do students still receive a temporary license when they pass their practical exam?
So for right now, this is only for the cosmetologist, license types. There's a certain order that you have to make your payment for the license, before you take the exam, and I'd have to look at the website to remember. Oh, you remember, good. So yes, it'll continue, but you've got to do things in a specific order that Miss Rebecca will help me out with.
So in order to obtain a temporary license, once you pass that written exam and before you finish your hours and your practical examination eligibility goes to PSI, you have to pay for your license. If you have not done that in that little tight window, you will not get a temporary license at the site. You have to be able to have made your payment for your license before your eligibility for your practical goes out.
Yes, Adams, I wrote that one, only because I've had students that pay for, and when they go take the practical, they don't get their temporary license.
So again, it depends on how our system has nothing to do with PSI. It depends on how our system recorded it. So if our system didn't record it, they may have made the payment, but let's say there was a delay in something. If our system doesn't record it, PSI doesn't get that notification for that license to be printed. So it's on our end. Only
Statisticians.
Correct.
It's just, it's operating.
Right now,
They're just operator at this time.
operator right now.
And
that's
some
correct.
specialty.
Think of it-
There is specialty.
Yeah, there's some specialties that
temporary
do, but
license.
it follows. Now for specialties, it's a little different because specialties, if they have to pay for it before you drop them, they've got to pay for their license because as soon as you drop them, that's when the eligibility generates for specialty. It's a little different from specialty and operators, because operators, there's a different window, but for specialties, both eligibilities, you still have to pass the written in order to take the practical, but you make them eligible for both technically at the same time because they finish their education. So they need to pay for that before you drop them. Okay?
I didn't drop, so, okay.
Think of it this way, the student has to complete the licensing requirements. That's what it comes down to, right? If we can't, to everything Rebecca's saying, those are all licensing requirements. If they didn't drop them, meaning they didn't finish the education, right? If they didn't pass the written, they didn't finish that requirement to pass the written, all of those things, we're not gonna send an eligibility for a practical that would say, if this person passed the practical was the last license requirement, they're gonna get a license because they haven't completed per se the education. So it's a transition that they have to do it. And I know unfortunately, since everything is electronic, it has to be a sequential way of doing things. So if they don't, and this is why we post the instructions, if you will, on if you really want a temporary license, you need to get these things done in these ways, so that would happen. So that the system will identify them, oh, they're good to go.
We had a question, if the afternoon session is a repeat of the morning session, I'll answer that one. Yes, it is.
What else?
If I have both Barber and Cosmo at my high school, how will the renewal process work? The cosmetology school license expires in January 2023 and the barber school in September 2023.
So the barber license, you will need to renew in January because the new license to offer both does not start until September 1, 2023. So if your license, the cosmetology license expires September 15th, 2023, when you renew that one, you will be issued the license for both. It will be just the school license. And that's the license you will continue to renew, and you will no longer need to renew that barber license.
It's the line in the sand, folks. If it's before, business as usual. If it's after, then that's what would happen. There are schools that even ask, hey, I want to start doing barbering now. Can I do it? Barbering school, because I have a Cosmo. Can I do it? Well, yeah, you can. You just need to pay for another license. Just like it is, right? Because the law hasn't changed, or the rule, we haven't made that transition. If you want to wait, then you won't have to pay for that, and you just can do it under one license. So it's the option of the school owner.
Can you clarify the need for having a barber pole? If we only offer cosmetology services, but hire barbers and cosmetologists, do we still need to have a barber pole?
There's no more requirement to have that barber pole.
If you want to have it, you can.
You can if you want to, but it's not required to have a barber pole.
Just please make sure we're not saying if you have a barber shop, that you have to take your barber pole down. It's not what we're saying. Angela's saying it's not required. So if you want to keep your barber pole, absolutely. But we're not looking at that.
Do online viewers have access to the handout that we were giving to physical attendees? If so, where? The human trafficking sign, those are available on our website, if that's the handout that they were referring to.
Yeah, the other thing is the summary of the changes. So that is also on our website, and the site that Derek demonstrated earlier, it will show exactly what we handed out in office. The other handout was just the schedule of all of the summits, and today is the last summit, so.
And that's online as well.
That is online as well.
And the PowerPoint presentation will be eventually available on the website. I can tell you I will not get that up today, but I will get that up as soon as possible, because we want to make sure that we also take into consideration those questions that we've been receiving, like today, if there's anything we want to add to that PowerPoint for clarification.
So I want to tell you guys, this is the last summit for what we are trying to share with the barber and cosmetology industry right now. As we move forward, you heard Derek, rules are going to be adopted in January, September 2023, the big change, right? Everything comes together. As we move through the fiscal year of 2023, we, the agency, we're going to start targeting certain groups for the barber cos industry, like I was saying earlier. We'll have a school meeting. Maybe we'll be at some of the events, hair shows, and different things. We'll go there and say, hey, we're going to have a little school session and tell you what we've learned even more now since we were able to make technical changes to our database. So we'll update you when we know, you'll know. But I don't want to tell you something that may change or may be different later. So wait to worry, right? And as we go through the year, we'll start making these different presentations. And even after September 2023, when everything is said and done, I'm sure we'll have more coming together to say, okay, what did we not do? Right? What things do we need to actually touch on? So there is going to be a pre, a during, and a post. We will continue to keep you updated on everything that we're doing. Any other
Okay.
questions?
I think this is probably the last one, but most of them are
The repeat?
repeats. If we're so worried about human trafficking in our industry, why are we removing a minimum education prerequisite for license holders, high school diploma or GED? Isn't this a direct route to human trafficking now?
I don't think it's, well, thank you for the question. The requirements and I think that Derek was saying, if you saw the advisory board, and this was an actual conversation that the board members were having. Cause those were licensing requirements saying, these are the things you need to have. Barber used to be 7th grade education, cosmetology was different, high school GED. The recommendation from the board was saying, let's have it at 17 years old, right? I think that's what it is, 17, right?
Right.
The recommendation from the board is at 17. Recommended from the advisory board, that's gonna go to the commission. And if they have comments or questions on that, we're gonna propose to them, Derek's gonna be talking to them, here are the recommendations, this is what it was, and they may even ask, well, what was it in Barber, what was it in Cos? They have all of that's on the table, and they're gonna present that these are the recommendations for licensure, right? It's not, it's not tied to human trafficking. This is, what is the minimum requirement I need to have in order to obtain a license from TDLR? That's how we're looking at that, and the advisory board members, if that's their recommendation on putting that mark at that point. To make it even, it's gonna be for both. Go ahead, Jen.
Can they enroll in school at 17?
They can enroll in school at 15 if they want, right? But we're not giving them a license until 17. If that rule stands and it's adopted, just like it is now, you know, have I finished high school? Well, I can be enrolled, right, until I get my high school diploma, right? So those are all what's called licensing requirements. I need part of the other licensing requirement is passing the exam, finishing the education. All of those are licensing requirements. We would not give a license until they do those things.
And particularly for schools, when will the refund policies consolidate so we know for that specific cohort, the enrollment agreements are updated?
Refund policies,
That's part of the January 1st change.
January 1st change?
Right.
Okay.
that's all in the, right? That's it.
Correct.
That's it.
Ray, I might hit just
We
a
want-
little bit on the human trafficking portion. Even though human trafficking may be happening in the industry, I'm not gonna say it's not, but it could be happening. The focus of the human trafficking portion is that awareness. Remember, everybody at some point goes to get their hair cut. That's why it was added in the health industry. At some point, somebody has to go to a doctor or they may be traveling. So that focus of the human trafficking is taking advantage of your clients, of getting that word out there and just making sure that people are aware of that, all right?
We got one last thing we want to share with you. Eric wants to share the complaint.
I want to make sure
We need
that-
to make sure.
So we did more than 21,000 inspections of barbering and cosmetology establishments last fiscal year. So we're out there, but of course, we can't be everywhere all the time, right? So if you go to our main website, there will be it's not sharing. There's a little lag.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great, thank you. So do you mind going back to the main page? So from the main website, there's a file a complaint link here. If you don't mind clicking that, thank you. So you have a couple of options. You can report unlicensed activity and it'll take you to the specific program and you can input that information. If you're seeing something, we want you to say something, right? Because we can't be everywhere all the time. We really do need your help. So just wanted to share that with y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. If there's no more questions, that's the end of our morning session. We'll be here Jonathan, go ahead.
The 184 hours a month, schools cannot post for a student more than 184 hours a month, starting January 1. Does that include field trip?
That includes
That's part of
all.
all hours. Thank you, guys. So we're, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
On the, this goes back to the Cosmo and the Barber. The Cosmo theory class has 45 minutes if they need, and Barber has 115 that is required. In combining that, whenever they can go into one classroom, with a dual license, instructor, is it going to be changed on the hours and minutes for that?
Well,
Look
you're,
at chapter 83-202,
yeah.
and you will see the new proposed technical standards, because that has changed for each license type. And look at that breakdown that's provided, and that will answer your question, because those theory and practical hours are not identified.
What was the number again?
The proposed rules are on our website, and you can click on it.
Okay, thank you.
And it's what Lorraine is saying is 83-202. That's the section.
And just to clarify, at the advisory board meeting, they made revisions to that text. So if you want to see the sort of current version that we're working with, you'll have to watch that meeting. We haven't posted that revised version yet. Because we're waiting on the commission to adopt.
Okay, guys, well, those who attended with us virtually, thank you for attending. Thank you all for the questions. Those here face to face, thank you for being here. We'll be sticking around for a little while, but we do need to go get something to eat so we can come back at 1 and do the same thing this afternoon. So we'll stick around for a little while, okay? Thank you, guys.